Don't leave your sonic screwdriver in the keyhole.
You're listening to a mostly harmless cutaway.
Mostly harmless. Mostly harmless? Oh, come. I think that's pretty good coverage for a disintegrated pile of rubble.
Hi, this is Eric.
This is Josh.
This is Sean.
This is Carl.
And this is Caleb.
And welcome back. It's Mostly Harmless Cutaway, episode 174, embarking on the second anniversary special of Doctor Who 2023 60th anniversary.
That's what we've been told. Although whether it was an anniversary episode or not, you can decide.
I'm sure everyone listening has already seen the story.
If not, shut this off and we'll go watch it.
Well, I feel like there's a small group out there who couldn't be bothered, but yet still want to check in and see what some people have to say or how they're reacting to some of these RTD specials. That being said, going into this one in particular, I feel like I have a lot less thoughts on the top of my head compared to last week in the Star Beast. So I kind of want to just hang and get a feel for the room here and see if anything inspires me. Does anybody want to lead off with their hot take or reaction to this episode?
I can't stand the silence. Well, someone's got to break the ice, and it might as well be me. Well, I'm used to being a host. This is part of my... Okay, sorry.
Oh, no.
I thought this was... What?
Just keep going.
We just went into Oscar Wilde there for a second. Go ahead.
Oh, no, that was Mrs. Peacock from Clue. I thought it was fantastic.
Flames on the side of my face.
I think this is fantastic. I think it's fantastic, really. With the Star Beast, RTD reminded us that we're back to Doctor Who, back the way it normally is. With Wild Blue Yonder, we're reminded that RTD is back. Because this has his fingerprints all over it.
Yeah.
Somebody, when they logged into the Zencaster program, calling on Midnight, was that a reference to the old episode Midnight?
Yes, it was.
I have something to say about that later.
Okay, very good. Okay. At first, I was just trying to tell which one of y'all was Midnight. On paper, this seemed like a new series adventure that they would publish. However, it was executed so well. The scenes where their bodies are falling apart, it's like, oh my God, this could have been like what people say the Love and Monsters is, something really horrible, but I don't mind it. But that's what happens when you have body horror mingle with Doctor Who, I guess, which you get a lot sometimes. I thought Catherine Tate and David Tennant, possibly one of the best pairings of companion and doctor. Yeah, maybe after Billy Piper and David Tennant, but they're brilliant in this, and they're so much fun. And I love this episode. I thought it was great. Yeah, I'm just gonna have a little bit of wine here.
Sean, when you said great pairing of companion and doctor, were you speaking new series specific or all time?
That's a good question. I think maybe all time.
Okay.
I mean, there's like.
Oh, geez, Tom Baker, Elizabeth Sladen. Like,
I was just gonna say that. That's like number one.
That is definitely number one.
Okay.
Wow.
And maybe John Pertwee and
Joe, definitely.
Joe is up there too.
Love that. And Second Doctor and Jamie. I mean, it's hard to argue. Those two are some of the greats as well, but maybe this is getting off.
Yeah, I think they're in the conversation, but I don't want to fight that fight right now.
I guess I'll go next. Yeah, definitely. If the Star Beast was kind of for me a wobbly beginning for the second RTD era, this was reminding us of the quality that you could get from him, but intermixed with the usual little RTD odd bits, like the Mavity joke. I don't know why that was thrown in there, and as much as I enjoy the creepiness of these doppelgangers, sometimes I think they took it a little bit too far, like David Tennant bending over backwards and putting his face at like
talking out of his ass. Yeah,
talking out of his ass. I was like, okay, like you just ruined the creepiness of this, what was a good scene than just suddenly this. The RTD is such a strange writer.
Have you ever seen the movie Society?
Yes, I have, and I love it. And Society did that kind of stuff much better than the weird effects here.
I guess so. I still found it to be creepy, but go ahead.
If only it was more gooey. If only there was a big orgy at the end. Oh, maybe I shouldn't say that. But Donna and the 14th Doctor, I guess. Although it feels just like the 10th Doctor. Yeah, that pairing is just so great, and they've got a lot of really fun moments here. And the fact that they're up against evil versions of themselves, in a way, I thought also really worked. It gave us a chance to see their pairing, exploring the differences between them now after all this time. So, yeah, lots of good stuff here, and definitely a much better direction to go in than maybe the comedy of the Star Beast. That was a little bit off for me. This felt more right.
Would you guys like me to go next?
Take it away.
Sure.
Take it away.
Because I'd like your patience as I read a prepared statement.
Great. Great. What does this mean?
I have been a Doctor Who fan since about 1980. And as an American, while it's not unique, the folks can say this are slowly dying away. Not making any statements here about that, just wanted to point out that for reference. And it seems to be happening across the board. I also want to make sure that people know that I'm not a far-right crazy person who's in love with Donald Trump. I'm not. Okay? I'm basically a left-leaning 53-year-old who likes his entertainment to be a distraction from real life. While Blue Yonder was pretty good for a story, I thought could have fit right into Series 4, but it felt more like Scooby-Doo than Doctor Who. And honestly, I think the baddie for this was fun for kiddies who enjoy cartoons. And this is where Disney has come in and basically made Doctor Who a cartoon or a comic strip, like they do with many superhero movies. Other than that, it's not a story I consider to be memorable in any way, shape, or form. It certainly had its moments, but any comparison made to Midnight or the like is literally crazy. It didn't achieve the atmosphere it was looking for because it's more like a children's show where 8-year-olds can get scared of arms being too long and faces being... It looked like Who Framed Roger Rabbit for a brief moment.
That stuff is terrible. Really, really terrible.
The reason it doesn't compare to Midnight is that RTD is no longer writing for atmosphere. He's writing to send a message with a story underneath, and frankly, it's not done cleverly. It's done more like a sledgehammer. When RTD brought Who back in 2005, he likely believed everything he believes now, politically. He probably hasn't changed his belief structure at all. However, he had a modicum of respect for the show he was going to run and knew his responsibility back in those days. He nodded to his predecessors and the show, well, quotation fingers, Bible, if you will. Made some small changes for a modern audience, but always showed his respect for the viewers, the history of the show, and frankly, history overall. Please note how he handled The Unquiet Dead with Dickens, or the Shakespeare Code with Shakespeare. Please, from that perspective, he allowed Martha to show up without much fanfare in the Shakespeare Code, but he didn't change history. Just adjusted it so we could have a cracking story. It wasn't slammed into your face, and certainly they didn't race swap either character. So why is this a thing now? After the Chibnall debacle, which is some of the worst writing, directing, and acting in Doctor Who history, I was indeed surprised when RTD agreed to come back to the show again. In fact, I was excited at the prospect of seeing real stories that would capture my interest and would be cleverly conceived. Unfortunately, we are seeing that RTD left the first time. He had no intention of writing for Doctor Who again, but now it is crystal clear he's purely doing it as a pulpit for his divisive political stances and his tough stance on identity politics. Therefore, you could say that he's made a brilliantly conceived toy out of the mummified remains of Doctor Who. He didn't come back to save Doctor Who. He came back to use Doctor Who to shove down his postmodern ideology and his love for trolling anyone he perceives to be on the far right. Forget about the story, everyone. It's just a reason to watch and to be taken in by the propaganda. It always bothered me that RTD brought sexual feelings into New Who. I understood it, but the Doctor never had sexual feeling towards humans, probably for obvious reasons. And it certainly didn't hamper the classic series from becoming popular. But I always assumed that to get modern audiences to watch, that you needed to add sex to get viewers. So the Doctor falls in love. I was willing to go with it because I wanted Who to be mainstream. Then Moffat set it up so the Doctor had a changeable gender. Let's say gender fluidity, which is your favorite phrase amongst the average college-age leftist on Twitter X. So he uses this to teach children they can be whatever they want. Be like the Doctor. Your hero was a woman, and now your hero is gay. Who thinks Ncudi's Doctor is never going to mention his preferences? Fact is, the regeneration of the Doctor is always exciting. Today, I kind of dread it. So, while Blue Yonder, as I mentioned, filler, basically would have been filler in Series 4, dicey CGI and cartoonish monsters. That, but nothing to do with the 60th anniversary of Doctor Who. Just a message in a Doctor episode bottle by the Doctor's admission of his sexual preference. It is pure preparation for the Ncuti era of Who, where identity politics comes first and the story comes afterwards. Last thing I'll say. I will continue to watch out of curiosity, but this show is no longer my favorite because it is degraded so much into propaganda that it's boring and predictable. The sad thing is, RTD cares not for the show's history any longer. He does not care about the entire fandom that made the show popular in the first place, and now, actual history. Diatribe over.
I'm way too stoned for this.
Yeah, I don't know what show you watched in this episode, but I don't know what to say to that either.
You don't know what show I watched?
No, I don't.
Did you? So you don't see any of what I mentioned?
I don't. I don't think you remember the RTD era. I think this is extremely in tone with his, and I'm comparing it to kind of a cartoon rather than real Doctor Who.
It was cartoonish. The big arms and everything, the arms dropping to the floor, that was cartoonish.
That I agree. That's been all of New Who, though. That's why I don't see
all of New Who. It's the last two episodes. We've had a furry little alien, and now we have a cartoon.
I'm pretty sure that.
I mean, we had the Pating we had the Pating during the Jodie Whittaker era.
No, there was plenty of cartoon moments.
Yeah,
in Eccleston series.
Extremely, yeah.
Because I remember when they happened, seeing them the first time, how they really bumped me. Like the
aliens from like World War III and stuff like that.
That for sure, but also
adipose.
The garbage can thing.
Yes.
with
that was just silly.
Yeah, but I mean that was episode 1. I mean,
I'm not saying that he hasn't done this in the past. I'm just saying he now has a much bigger budget to do it with Disney. So now he's making everything into a cartoon.
I think a lot of Doctor Who fans have some weird like rose tinted glasses for new Doctor Who, but I feel like this is very consistent with what the old RTD era was. And to say that this particular episode feels like it was more about the message than anything else,
which
I don't really see that either.
I mean, to start with race swapping Isaac Newton, and then to have the Doctor say that he's gay.
But where's the message there?
I mean, he sticks these things in and slams your head down at it like a sledgehammer.
Like a minute of screen time, though, for both.
It's all subliminal.
So, Josh, I mean, I recognized all the elements and points you brought up. I mean, obviously recognized them before you spoke them as I was watching it. But a sledgehammer, it did not feel that way to me.
Either one of those two lines were necessary. The Isaac Newton thing wasn't necessary, and neither was the line about him being gay.
Well, certainly neither was necessary,
What
but
line about him being gay?
It was a very small little line.
It's silly. It's silly. He never said, "Oh, I'm heterosexual." He never mentions this. But suddenly it just becomes a thing. And like, it shouldn't be a thing.
Well, let me address that one first. The throwaway line, who were they talking about? Was
Isaac
hot?
Newton.
Yeah, Isaac Newton. So, that little line that the Tennant Doctor said, or the 14th Doctor, to me, me personally, it was just like, okay, I get a little bit of cheek. But I also knew that it was going to trigger like a certain modern audience of this show at the same time.
Yes.
But but if I put that aside and it's just me watching it and just thinking about my own reaction, to me, I think it was more a throwaway line, almost like a, not literally, but figuratively, like a nod back to the gay agenda from the early RTD years.
Yep.
But also, I took it as, I think it's more meant to be a throwaway line, even though it's obvious it's going to have more of a reaction than a throwaway line. I mean, by design. But to me, it's analogous to the she's a very beautiful woman, probably.
No.
Oh no.
No, not at all, Eric.
Hold on.
Not at all.
Hold on. You guys can explain what you mean, but all I'm saying is, like, when I heard that line, the original one, yeah, it's a little bit cheek, and no, it doesn't imply anything political or anything like that. It's sort of like a little joke on, you know, the Doctor possibly being asexual or non-sexual or something, which is fine. But what I'm saying is, its impact on me personally is the part that's the same, meaning, well, actually not exactly the same, because the first one was a little bit funnier, but this one I also took the minor humor, but it didn't personally push me any further. I didn't feel like it was meant to be like a canonical implication to the 14th Doctor. Of course, many will read into it that way. I mean, even those who want it to be true will read into it that way. But it was, to me, very little, like almost a zero burger in far as moving my personal needle. That's just me. And then the other thing about Sir Isaac Newton. So normally when I see that pop up in like modern shows for the last 3 or 4 years, you know, generally I have like a figurative eye roll in my head. But I think I've moved on a bit to where it's so commonplace in so many shows, especially British ones, but
Yes.
tons of American
Yeah, because the
ones.
BBC insists on it.
Yeah. And but then there's numerous like Netflix series and other
Yep,
things.
they also
stateside.
insist on it.
So at this point, I almost don't even have the energy for an eye roll. It just is what is, because it's just the way many things are now.
You've become numb to it. You've become numb to it.
Yeah. I've become numb to it, you could say. But furthermore, I am curious, and maybe it would be giving it too much credit, the story, this particular one, with the whole Mavity thing joke, which I'm not sure if it was just a dumb joke for a one-off episode, or if it was supposed to imply something going forward, like in a future episode. Because noting little changes like that, Back to the Future style, like where your actions, you know, have a consequence or result, that's not usually the way Doctor Who works. So for that to happen now, that's the only reason I wonder if this is planting a seed for something in a future
That sounds like a
episode.
Moffat thing to do.
You're right.
But RTD did do stuff like that as well.
Yes, that's true. So that's why I'm wondering, because if it strictly is a joke just limited to this one episode, that seems like a very odd choice to me. Okay, and the reason I brought that up is because it makes me wonder if the Mavity thing is supposed to show, oh, something's happening with causality, which doesn't normally happen in Doctor Who. Then the fact that Sir Isaac Newton is not an Anglo-Saxon male, is that also tied to that possibility of this Mavity situation?
Oh no, this is the Flash rule.
And again,
You
I
could
don't
only
know.
wish that would be the case, Eric. It's likely not.
I don't know. I'm not putting stock in that. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but it does raise my curiosity to have both of those elements. And obviously the Mavity thing is connected to that character as well in the episode. So that's just my question marks. But other than that, yeah, I don't personally have strong feelings about it.
Yeah, and for me, watching that Isaac Newton scene, of course, I was like, oh, yeah, they decided to cast him as Indian. I'm not sure why. Seemed like a weird choice, but my more problem with this scene is I just thought that the humor was terrible. That whole joke scene, I was like, wow, this feels like something out of The Runaway Bride.
Mm-hmm.
This is just...
Oh, yeah, and you reminded me of another comment I had just in general. So yes, this very much feels like it could have been slotted somewhere in series 4. And this is both a good thing and a lukewarm thing for me, because on the one hand, yeah, this is great. I mean, obviously reminds me of Doctor Who of the RTD era, just with a modern coat of paint. I'm fine with that. That's cool. But then it also has a little bit of mediocrity, because that also was not one of my favorite series of Doctor Who, series 4 of the new series. That's one of my lower ranked, if we pretend Chibnall doesn't exist. And so that's like where it's like, oh yeah, but I don't necessarily want to be reminded of that. And as much as I love David Tennant and Catherine Tate reprising their roles in these 2 stories thus far, and think they're really great performers in Doctor Who, when Donna had like, especially when they're in the tree, and she was like, and oh, by the way, and I can't remember what it is she wanted to tell Sir Isaac, but the doctor was like, no, don't do that, and she was like, oh, come on, and that reminded me of the elements of Donna's character that I never liked. And I also never liked, during the RTD era, when any of those companions of that time got this bombacity as if they were like a Time Lord deputy.
Clara.
Yeah, definitely Clara.
That's a little bit different, but particularly in the RTD era, whenever the companions started to walk around like very pridefully as a time traveler, I generally never liked that. Like it made the companion characters like start not to be so, like, I don't know what the word is. Like, I feel like I can't relate to them anymore.
Yeah, they became smug.
Pretentious, smug, yes. And I never liked that in the new series companions in particular, or especially during the RTD era in particular.
But psychologically, it makes sense, actually. If
you
you live through so many things where you're about to die, you start to think, hey, I can kind of manage this.
No, you're so right, and it's almost surprising throughout the history of Doctor Who, well, surprising and not surprising, that there haven't been more companions that went down the road of the short-lived Adam, because that's what would probably be natural if you just pluck a random human and take them on these wondrous adventures. But still, and I'm not saying I don't like it as a story choice to have companions be pompous like that. It's just not my personal cup of tea, is really what I'm saying. Yeah. And so these moments with Donna in this episode, especially the tree one, it just reminded me of just little things I don't like, but that, again, is just personal preference.
Hey, one thing I'll just say in addition to my written diatribe, which is obviously written right after the show, I went and watched it back again, and I will tell you that it is refreshing in one way, and that is it's clearly written very well. It's clearly performed very well, and very well directed. Like, these are things that I took for granted prior to the Chibnall series, and that is refreshing. Like, just to deal with a show that's actually well made, is a nice change for Doctor Who. And you watch this one, or you even watch the Star Beast and go back and watch something from the Jodie era, you'll realize how poor the direction was in the Jodie series, and the acting, etc. It's like miles away from where it was. My diatribe mostly comes from the fact that I feel like we're being trolled, and I feel like they're preparing us for a Ncuti Gatwa series where he's going to be clearly a queer doctor, so to speak, and we should be prepared for that. And I feel like also, I used the Pirate Planet kind of brilliantly conceived toy out of the mummified, remains of planets thing. I just think, RTD came back, and I don't feel like he necessarily came back to save the show. I think he came back because he saw an opportunity, and nobody was going to take it away from him. And then when you include the BBC and you include Disney into all this, suddenly it becomes, let's send a message. And that's how I felt about it. And, even though you think it's a throwaway line, Eric, it was an unnecessary line. And anything that's unnecessary, doesn't need to be there. It's only there for a specific purpose and has gone through the edit room for a specific purpose.
No, I don't deny that, but I feel like if I made a list of unnecessary lines throughout new series Doctor Who,
Yes.
the list would go on
It'd
forever.
be endless.
No, I agree, but if I really believe that RTD made for damn sure, and maybe the BBC did this too, made for damn sure that we understood the Doctor's sexual preference. The pronouns have to be mentioned and talked about. The male presenting Doctor, all that had to come in because we needed to have the message versus, having it to be a good story. It was important to have these quotation fingers, throwaway lines.
The thing is, while it is RTD's version of that, what you just said, I feel like if they would have brought in practically any British showrunner, those same elements would have appeared in some shape or form.
I don't know about that. I don't.
I think so.
Maybe,
but
RTD has been very outspoken.
Yeah, he has.
On these topics, he's been outspoken on his politics. He's been, and my point was in the written thing that I wrote, my point is that in 2005 he felt exactly the way he feels now. The difference is that he had a lot more respect for the series and a lot more respect for the fans and a lot more respect for the Doctor Who Bible than he does now.
I weirdly feel like I'm siding with Caleb on this in that, I don't disagree.
I don't need you to side with anybody. I'm telling you my feeling about it.
No, it's just oftentimes Caleb and I debate this on and off mic. Not this exact point, but something like it. But in this instance, today, I think I'm siding with Caleb in the sense that, I believe you're right, Josh. This probably aligns with his beliefs in 2005. It's just, to me, it feels much more consistent. To me, it feels like the same RTD as 2005.
But it's not. It's not. Because
that's obviously where we just.
The Davros thing is the perfect example of that. He presented Davros in a wheelchair, quotation fingers, a wheelchair, a life preserving device, in 2009, and suddenly in 2023, he doesn't want disabled people to be considered evil.
Yeah, and for those interested, I had more words on that on something we record that hasn't hit the feed yet, and I'm not saying it's great because I was kind of loathing that.
But that's my example. That's my example of the fact that he might have believed something back in the day, but he never went through with it because he had too much respect for the series, too much respect for that character, and now he doesn't. It's more about the message versus maintaining the character.
That's the other point. I feel like that's consistent too. Whatever his respect level is for the original show, to me, it doesn't feel that different now in 2023 than it did in 2008. And maybe that's just me, but to me, it feels kind of the same.
He always changed it to fit his whims. Whatever he wanted to do with the show, he changed it. And whatever his flight of fancy was, like in this case, I think just the movement for disability representation just changed in that time. And so he's like, okay, well, this show, it's so flexible. I can do whatever I want with it. Mm-hmm. I want to make it more modern now, look through a 2023 lens, so I'll change it in that way.
It's funny that it's changed so much over that period.
It's a long time.
It's not that long. It's not that long.
Political movement in 12 years? About that long?
Yeah, because of radicalism. That's the reason why things have moved so fast.
But also that particular interview clip, the one where he's speaking directly on that whole Davros thing, I actually watched a longer clip version of it today than I had seen before. And so I got to hear a little bit more of what he said before and after that particular piece. And I don't know why it didn't dawn on me until today that, of course, he was speaking in an interview that was directly tied into the Children in Need charity, and I didn't even think of that context when I had watched the shorter clip before.
Oh, okay.
And I thought, oh God, I mean, this makes a lot more sense now. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't sound as much like a purposeful troll to me now that I see it in context compared to when I was originally reacting to it. And I was like, oh, he's obviously directly trying to reach in and tie it into the charity event. And that just made like a whole lot more sense to me.
Yeah.
To the point that I don't even know if he truly believes what he says or if he was just trying to pull something out of his behind for the particular interview.
He wasn't pulling it out of his behind. He had it all prepared.
Fine. But I was like, okay, you know what? This has a lot more context. I don't feel as wild. And I never felt wild about it in the first place, except again, I was more sensitive to the fact that it felt like he was intentionally trolling other people, not me.
Oh, he's definitely intentionally trolling other people.
But now I just feel lesser now that I saw more.
He's definitely intentionally doing it. By the way, I think we should move on to Carl and hear his perspective.
Well, thanks for that gradual transition.
I'm the king of segues, Carl. So
I mean, there's a lot to say in response to some of the things you were saying. Let me just try to get the basics out in terms of what I thought of the episode, and then I'll say a couple of things. First, I just want to remind our audience that of all the veterans here, I am sort of the newbie to the world of Doctor Who. It's true, I've watched it for years, but the depth and the history, it's not there for me. I'm watching this, with a sort of an innocence, and within what is presented of the episode, I don't really know a whole lot of, outside of the story history. I don't know a lot of what's going on with, the writers and the directors and stuff. I've just been watching the episodes and the series as it's been presented. So when I see this episode, this one, a couple of things went through my mind. When the episode first started, I had this odd sense of relief. And this is something, again, across the history of Doctor Who, the special effects have not been fantastic with Doctor Who. Just throughout the entire history of the show, the special effects have not been fantastic.
What, Carl? What?
Look, I'm just going to go out on a limb and say this. I've always liked Doctor Who for the story, for the intelligence of what was going on, for the the personality of the characters, but the effects, I have always had to really work to get around. And so, of late, recently, and particularly this season, the opening credits and the effects, they're really, really pretty. And I would sit and as we were watching the drone, fly along the side of the spaceship, I relaxed. I was like, oh my God, finally Doctor Who has gotten to this place where the effects are more natural, more rich. Look at the resolution and the lighting of this. I was like, oh, this is so much better. I can finally let down my guard regarding the effects on Doctor Who, because now they got the budget, now they got the technology. Then came the hands, then came the jaw. Then came the head out of the butt. I was like, "Oh my God!" I mean, literally in this episode, I had finally said, "All right, they finally got it. I can sit back and I can relax and and not have to squint through Babylon 5 caliber special effects. Not backlit plastic bags. I'm like, oh, look at what they've achieved." And then, I mean, literally, it was like 8 minutes later, I got giant hands, physical special effect gags, where it's a clear, the hand is not the same person's hand close to the camera. I was like, oh my God, they got me. They got me again. Doctor Who effects, why? I was like, you got the budget of Disney. What? Why? But that being said, of course, I'm still thrilled to see, Tennant back and both, Doctor and Donna. Again, I'm still not my favorite, but they're rocking it here. The dynamics between them, what they're putting out here is really amazing, independent of what is happening in these stories. It's so good to see them and what just what they're, the emotional portrayal of what they're doing is very, very powerful. When the episode first started out, and and we saw Isaac Newton, I'm looking at him like, is that supposed to be Isaac Newton? I wasn't sure when it first started out. I'm willing to roll with that. It's I'm not quite as sensitive to all the race swapping stuff. But what I did not like was, TARDIS in the tree. And I mean, and by the way, so as soon as I figured out that was Isaac Newton, I was like, oh no. Because and he goes to sit down on the chair. I was like, oh no, here we go. Somehow the TARDIS, I don't know if the dog's going to be throwing apples at him. I knew that's where they were going to go. So again, the race issue was not such a big deal for me. And again, the mavity of that concept, I will simply condense into this, which is, as a member of an underrepresented race in modern science fiction, even now, growing up as a kid, I'm just used to not seeing people that look like me in science fiction and on the screen. And so early on, even, look, come on, like Cleopatra and Egyptians back in the, come on, don't start with me about folks not looking like what they're supposed to. Yeah. I was very comfortable, historically, before even all this modern era that we're in, I'm comfortable rooting for or getting behind characters that don't look like who they ought to be or that don't look like me. So I don't have that kind of sensitivity to it. And the fact that it is changing now, to me, considering we've got, 100 years of motion pictures and film where, let's just say the representation was less than accurate when you go back and you look at Asians and you go back and you look at Native Americans and you go back and even, how can you not have black folks as black folks? I mean, just so the sensitivity to, race swapping, whatever the character is, within the 15, 20 years of modern media where that has started to become a vogue, you push that back 80, 90 years prior to that, where, that no one seemed to have a concern about that before. I am less than sensitive to that particular topic and that particular item. But I did think TARDIS in the Tree was extremely goofy. And I saw heavy-handed where they were going to go with the TARDIS and the apples and all the Newton stuff. I just knew that's where they were going with that. And I was not thrilled with that. I'm kind of with Eric. I'm holding out hope that there is a cross-episode Mavity comeback regarding that. I'm because it, if it doesn't, that was a long, long way to go for a gag that did, in my opinion, didn't work. That was a long way to go for a gag that I do not believe worked. So if we're going to be bringing Mavity back and having a situation where them playing around in time actually has an impact later on in the timeline of what things are, happening further on, okay, I'm down with that. But if that's all it was just this one gag, I'm going to be a little disappointed with that. Additionally, though, with this episode, before the hands, before all of that, as we were building up to the moment where we see what the danger is, I really appreciated the foreboding. There was a real tension in that knocking around in that empty ship, and them walking along and seeing Clockwork Robot and them trying to figure out, the TARDIS taking off and bailing. You get a real sense of dread and foreboding. And like Jaws, we haven't even seen anything yet. But for them to be able to create that tension, again, the directing is strong. The acting is strong. I was really, leaning in, going, what in the world are we going to encounter? What are these puzzle pieces of the slow droid and the words being spoken, the abandoned ship, TARDIS taken off? What could it be that brings on this degree of danger? So, again, at this moment, I was really appreciating how all of the pieces came together. and where the story was taking us, where we're going, and how I was feeling. Again, I was really drawn in by a lot of this stuff. When we started to see, Doctor and Donna acting odd in their opposite rooms, I kind of knew where that was going and what it was that we were seeing. I think maybe like Jaws, the dread and the baddies might have been more powerful if we didn't see them. Because what we ended up with, and again, Donna and Doctor, or evil Donna and Doctor, their acting was good. The acting was good, and the twistedness of what those characters were supposed to be, I was okay with that. But after all of that buildup, I never truly understood what the degree of danger was that those two presented. They've been hanging out on the ship. They, the previous pilot killed himself trying to destroy them. The dread and anticipation of what could be on the ship was a lot stronger than what we actually saw. Even though on paper I can respect the idea of alternate beings knowing what Dr. Donna and Doctor know, that is a particularly powerful villain, really. We did not see them utilize that sufficiently in this episode. They pulled on their heartstrings. They did an emotional thing that I thought was interesting. They developed the characters of our Doctor and Donna as a result of what we saw them say. But the true dread and threat of who these two were, I don't feel that ever really came across. And then when you start to see the effects and the cartoony response and the fast forwarding special effect, it just kept knocking back the quality and the nature of the dread. I'm totally, I got you with the Scooby-Doo reference. I think, there was what started as being really dark and foreboding came out to be some kind of a, like you said, like a cartoony, like what children, like a threat that would be family appropriate. And that felt kind of like a letdown to me. And then they seem to be using a lot of glass walls this season. Separating characters, glass walls.
Good point.
Didn't think it was effectively done last episode. Not enthusiastic of seeing that coming right back in the very next episode again, having this dialogue through the glass wall again. So I got mixed reactions, mixed feelings about this one, because like I said, love seeing, Doctor and Donna together. I felt the puzzle pieces and the components of this were very strong, and I liked the dread that and where it was taking us. But what they did with, evil Dr. Donna, particularly the use of the cartoony effects and the motion, it really seemed to pull back a lot of what I liked about the darkness and the dread.
Carl, how about the teeth?
Well,
the teeth that came from some joke store.
Compared to some of this other stuff, that I found slightly more disconcerting than having a bunch and giant inflatable heads chasing you in the hallway. That I was like, okay, that I can deal with. But so I got feelings. It's
a lot of the weird dysmorphia or body morphing, I don't know what it is. It felt loosely inspired by Everything Everywhere All at Once, the movie. I kind of feel like they were kind of inspired by that, because once the zany things started to happen in this episode, I just felt, oh, this is the influence of that movie. And so it just felt like that to me.
That's interesting, because I just want to, now that you say it, I can see that here. Although Everything Everywhere All at Once, they somehow managed to keep a degree of depth and seriousness, even with, hot dog fingers, right? I mean, that's some real talent in terms of direction and
No, I agree.
So-
I agree. It's a much better story and execution, the movie. And also, I think another reason the movie does better with this type of zany content is because there was more use of practical effects. Because the one scene where Donna and the doctor, the not Donna, not doctor, get really huge and stuck in the hallway.
I love that scene.
Yeah, see, I like that scene conceptually. I just think it would have been so much better and more memorable for me if they had somehow done it practically. I'm thinking of some of the, I can't remember if it was the 80s or 90s when they did like a British production of Alice in Wonderland, and where you have like a full-size actor in a model. If they had just mocked up that frame of the hallway with a miniature and had actual David Tennant and Catherine Tate like squeezing into frame, that would have been awesome. I would have loved that.
I am with you 100% on that, Eric. I mean, just as you were laying it out, I was like, that really would have worked. That would have been a tip of the hat to the classic, kind of goofy effects. If you're gonna do something like that, go retro and embrace the classic.
Oh boy!
Don't use the modern special effects and then make it look goofy. You're right, Eric. That would have worked.
No, but like the with David Tennant's drooping eye and stuff like that. I actually took my remote and just like paused it. I was going to take a picture of it. It's like David Tennant's drooping eye and his big hand coming across. It was just, it felt very very cartoonish. And hey, look, you know what? If they're going for 8-year-olds, it's going to work great, which is fine. It's fine. It's not. It's clearly the show is not directed towards me. So if they're trying to get 8-year-olds, they're going to do very, very well on this.
Well, it is curious what they were trying to pull with that, because on one hand, like I said, look at what they've been able to do. The intros, a lot of the effects. These effects are just top notch compared to anything that we have seen before in the in the Who series. But then to mix it in with the comic, cartoony, sort of middling effect, that was jarring. That was what the problem.
Very Disney though, isn't it? Like,
well, what else?
Didn't it feel like again, like I used to have kids who watched the Disney Channel, like back in the day. And they used to do stuff like this.
Some of it's Disney. And I'm also reminded of, for like the first 5 or 6 years, I would follow the Arrowverse series on CW. And those started off serious in tone in the beginning. But once they got to around year 5 or so, they started having more and more really bad looking CG, like worse than we saw in this episode, and weird cartoony effects. And that's ultimately why I stopped watching those shows, because I couldn't handle it anymore.
You were watching, what's that one that you watched that I hate? Legends of whatever. What was it called?
Yeah, the one with Rory.
God, that was terrible. I hated that one. Look, I watched some of the other ones, and I'll admit the effects were not fantastic, but they weren't as hammy and corny as what they were doing on that. Well, that show was rough.
Yeah. Josh, there was this show by DC CW called Legends of Tomorrow, starring Rory for like the first couple seasons. And at one point, and they have a time machine spaceship. And at one point, they even have a hexagonal control console inside their ship. But
what a great idea!
Anyway, so while this is not my favorite episode of Doctor Who or new series Doctor Who or anything like that. It does fit in with RTD's era. I already described how, and I'm good with that. I am surprised, though, as much as it's overall just an okay, fine episode for me, there were at least 2 or 3 emotional moments that I was surprised actually worked for me, because I wasn't that invested in the episode itself. Also, despite like some of the not grievances, but things that have been brought up by all of us that we didn't really care for, I also think it's a plus that despite all those things, I was never like, oh, this sucks, or I don't like this one,
Yeah.
or I just want to skip. I was reasonably into it the entire runtime, even if there was little things here and there I found disagreeable. So for me, that's another plus.
Yeah, I mean, compared to the Jodie era, like I wasn't looking at my watch,
Yes, exactly.
Eric, you know?
I hate to go
That's
that
the
well
difference. Like I never looked at my watch.
Yeah. I never looked at my watch, and I hate, kicking a dead horse, which is why I try to avoid bringing up the Chibnall era. But so that was good. And like I said, there was some emotional moments. I was surprised that I at least felt something for when they had the conversation pertaining to the flux, or events that happened in the flux, because obviously those are things I never wanted to care about in the moment and never wanted to think about again. And it was interesting to me that in that little scene in this episode, they actually made me take the flux seriously for a second and actually think about like what the doctor. So that was a weirdly impressive thing to do, to make me care about something I've never wanted to care for in Doctor Who. So I do have to give.
So
some
you
nods
actually
for that.
you care about the flux now?
I don't care about the flux, but I care about.
I don't give two flux.
How the Doctor may or may not be affected, like his character, because of whatever self-discoveries were made during that.
It also doubled down on the Timeless Children as well.
Also, and maybe I just left myself a little bit more open to being gullible in watching modern series lately, compared to how I used to be, because for a moment I almost thought that the real Donna was going to be left to expire inside the ship.
Oh yeah, I thought that just for a second. I've seen that out there too. It's like, what if that had happened?
Yeah, and if it would have happened, then I would have expected there would be a future episode where that has to be undone or something like that. But still, for a moment, I thought that was actually going to happen, and that, so we saved her from the meta-crisis problem, you fans who love Donna so much, but now we're going to snatch her away right away. And I thought that would have been
The Doctor had made the biggest mistake of his life.
And I almost thought they were going to do that and start like
God,
new
if they had done that, man,
arc for the Doctor to deal with emotionally. Although it did seem weird that he chose the wrong Donna in the first place, because it seemed.
Well, that's because he's male presenting. He doesn't know what he's doing.
It's obviously that. So, and then of course there's kind of the final scene with Bernard Cribbins.
Yes, very nice.
Yeah, and certainly it probably hit me more. Well, partly because I was thinking about him going back to his appearance in the 1960s movie, and just thinking how long he's had a connection to the overall franchise, and then of course it being what do you call it? Post-mortem of the actor.
What?
Is that the how?
Just say after he's died.
Yeah, what do you call that?
Posthumous?
Posthumous? Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
I mean, postmortem means you're actually dissecting his body to see what killed him.
I thought postmortem just meant post-life. But anyway.
No.
Long time, lady, no.
I have to look up postmortem later. But anyway.
Oh, no.
But the fact that it's posthumous, it didn't hit me as hard as it probably hit other people. But it still hit me.
I would describe it the same way. Exactly how you just described it.
Same for me. Yeah, it was nice to see him.
It was great to see him.
Yeah, I just don't have the same affection for the RTD era that it seems like most people do. So,
but I mean, the fact it's his last job.
Yeah.
There's something about that, and just the fact that he was there, and that he died not long after that scene was done is special from
That's
that
fair.
perspective. And from that perspective, it was good to see. It was nice to see him on camera that last time that we wouldn't have gotten. And it was really, again, I kind of agree with you, Caleb, about the RTD era to a large extent, but just that moment, Wilf was really important at the end of the David Tennant era. So to see him there, just having that last that last moment was special. I think really, really special for the show.
Yeah,
and for the actors. I think it's just really, really special.
and he wasn't just there to provide 4 knocks and then be responsible for the 10th Doctor's death.
Yeah, he was there. It was I mean, I just think that was beautiful. That was probably my favorite part. I mean,
I knew it was coming, and I was like, okay, let's get this over with. And then I found it as soon as like they got his reaction to the TARDIS, to seeing the TARDIS. It was like the best reaction since Sarah Jane saw it, in school reunion.
Yeah, good point.
It was really good.
Oh God, yeah, that's the piece that I didn't cry, but I appreciated it, and I'm glad they got that chance. I'm glad they got that chance.
Exactly. It wouldn't be complete to bring back Donna and 10 if you didn't have that piece.
Absolutely, and if they waited another year, they wouldn't have had it, or even another few months. It's just it's a special thing.
Well, the tease that it was coming from the last episode, I just, I thought it was fantastic. I agree. He was a powerful character throughout the history of Doctor Who, and I always like the scenes that he's in. But again, the previous episode where there's that moment where the Doctor's asking about him, and they said he's not there, and he's like, oh, he's always fantastic. Oh. No, he's actually that whole shift kind of messed with me. From that episode, I said, well, if these coming back, it better be, a moment that makes up for the whiplash I'm dealing with here. It was pretty. It was a pretty moment to see him in there. So,
yeah, I guess I didn't think about it, but when they would have filmed that scene, they didn't know that he was going to die. So, yeah, that makes it a little bit more awkward because it would have changed for the audience what they would have thought hearing that line.
Right.
Rather when they filmed it.
Other than the fact that he's like, 94?
Well,
they didn't know he was going to die.
they might have thought he could have made it till this aired, or at least a Star Beast.
Yeah.
But I'm curious for you, Sean, considering I think you're the most positive on the episode.
Yeah.
Is there any highlights that you want to make sure you mention?
I want to address the. I said earlier it seemed to work for me, and I watched it again. And the scene with the body parts flopping and they're chasing him down the hallway and all that, I don't really think it looks that bad. I'm not that troubled by it. And I think because, oh God, what was the movie? I can't remember. I think it was called Insidious. Horror movie, very scary. And then in the middle of the scary movie, you put something like Tiny Tim singing Tiptoes and the Tiptoe and the Tulips. And now all the children, all the young'uns, they think that's a terrifying song. But I really like when they do that in scary movies, where they have the juxtaposition of the terrifying moment with the silly music, like Jeepers Creepers, where'd you get those peepers?
Yeah. That's fair.
This scene kind of reminded me of that. I mean, they were like had these big, dumb, stupid bodies, but it was still played as a horror scene, like, oh, we do get hungry, don't we? Like just that one line that the fake doctor says. And even when their bodies are flopping around, I still thought that they were menacing. And I appreciated like the little bits, like when he grabs it and she's like hitting it with a crowbar, like get the hand away.
Oh no.
I don't know. It worked for me. And it's something that when I watch it again, I'm going to have to watch it with subtitles because there's a lot of fast David Tennant in this and Catherine back and forth. And I'm like, okay, do I have to live in England to understand this? I don't understand. You're playing down to me. I don't like it. But yeah, I will be an apologist for this episode and say that I really enjoy it.
No, I'm generally with what Sean just said about injecting the silliness into the horror tome. I'm probably not into it as much as Sean is, but generally I kind of have the same feeling as Sean just shared.
Yeah, I wish RTD had been more careful. I put Midnight as my name here on Zencaster, but that was only to say that he was once great, and he in this episode is bringing up some of the things that he used to in the past. But I think overall RTD's instincts is always to lean into more silliness than horror. And I think he's got a strong grasp before. I wish that he would just be more confident with it instead of feeling the need to kind of couch it in this ridiculous bombast that he does.
Yeah, instead he gives it to Mark Gatiss.
Yeah.
Oh, let's not talk about him. By the way, I was thinking of the Lazarus experiment a couple times.
Oh yeah, that's a good comp.
Classic.
That's a good comp. Do you imagine like the Lazarus experiment, like using like the Disney funds to,
It would look better, that's for sure. Oh boy.
Yeah, it definitely would look better. Maybe his eye would droop a little bit more. I don't know.
Oh, it could be terrifying in unintended
He
ways.
could be talking out of his ass.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was also thinking of the Rebel Flesh 2-parter, if you guys remember the ending to that.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
I thought about that a little bit.
Anything with doppelgangers.
That was Moffat.
Yeah, that was under Moffat's
He has like
run.
Android Invasion. Okay, cool. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Android Invasion is one of my favorites, even though there's no reason for it to be such.
And while it's obviously not as good as Midnight, I do definitely feel like this very comfortably fits into that vein of genre, even if you guys disagree or don't agree on in terms of quality for just this episode. But it definitely feels like that episode to me. And of course, Edge of Destruction, which I always thought was a very, very interesting early Doctor Who episode.
Eric, go back and watch Midnight and tell me if it compares.
Again, that one is better and superior.
Like
Midnight.
by as you would say, by leagues.
I wouldn't say leagues, though. I wouldn't say by miles, in my personal opinion.
I would definitely say that. Midnight, the actual like atmosphere in Midnight is nothing like this, in that like I never felt any concern in this one. And yet in Midnight it was massively concerning.
I think it's significantly better in those terms you just brought up, Midnight. It's just not as wide a gap for me as it is with perhaps you and others. But, I mean, fine, whatever. Oh my gosh. There was something else I was going to say about this.
I have a random question while you're thinking. Who crew. Has the Doctor ever Back to the Future hoverboarded the TARDIS before?
Yes.
Is that a thing?
Yeah. Yeah. In the new series he has.
In the new series.
I didn't remember that before. I was like, why
The
is
the Runaway Bride is the perfect example.
Yeah, that was kind of zany, as I recall.
That was definitely zany.
Terrible is the word.
Well, yeah, I really disliked that episode when it came out.
Horrible.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I was
Santa's a robot.
And that was actually the first Catherine Tate episode, by the way.
Yeah, even before she was a companion. It was like a year before.
Yeah. Which is why when they said they were going to bring her back, I was like, why?
That's because she wanted to do it. Like this whole thing, like had its genesis in the during the pandemic when they were doing Doctor Who watching things.
Sure. Oh, no, I meant when they brought her back for series 4.
Oh, okay, all right, yeah.
I understand better in this modern context, but back then, and I also believe a lot of people didn't like Runaway Bride at the time, but then they got won over as series 4 progressed.
It got better, but I mean, it was never the best. I mean, I realize that other people are very into the Donna character, and I understand that. But I mean, it's okay. It's not great. It's okay. And I know people love it and love Catherine Tate. And I love Catherine Tate from her comedic stuff. But as a companion, I always found her to be okay. Not fantastic.
Oddly, I like Catherine Tate when she's playing the more serious things. But whatever, neither here nor there. I guess the thing I was thinking of was, so far with these two stories, the first one very much felt like an RTD series premiere. Very, very much.
Partners in crime, if you will.
Yeah. Or even Rose, or even whatever the Martha one is, Stolen Earth, whatever.
Smith and Joe.
This episode very much feels like an RTD penultimate finale or lead up to the finale episode, again, right out of his playbook in style and tone, and just planting some foreboding seeds.
Eric, I thought it was more like the Idiot's Lantern.
No.
I thought
Disagree.
it was something that fit into a season, but was just a standalone.
No, it had a feeling of. I know Midnight was not the penultimate episode, but it was like leading into the lead into the lead in.
Yeah, it was true.
And it also tonally, like the way it frames things, the emotions kind of reminded me of what is it? Stolen Earth. Just something bad is about to happen in the next episode. So I'm assuming the next episode will play like an RTD season finale / regen story, which is another crazy thing to me.
The mavity of the situation will definitely be different.
Oh dear. No, but it kind of, so these 3 episodes, I know the third one obviously hasn't aired yet, but the quickness of it, the trilogy, if you will, has really kind of snuck up on me, because first of all, I didn't realize they were going to be released so close in succession to each other, since normally Doctor Who specials, are like spaced out a little bit. So that took me by surprise. And then just when I got comfortable with this concept of having the 14th Doctor and kind of getting comfortable with it, I already feel this little bit of anxiety of, oh my God, he's going to be gone again.
Well, he's just going to let go of this regeneration, Eric.
Okay, spoilers. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm just saying.
I haven't seen the final one. I'm guessing.
I'm just saying on paper, though, like I'm just starting to get comfortable and happy with having Tennant back again. And now I almost feel like I don't want him to go in only 3 episodes. Like I almost wish there was 10 episodes.
He doesn't want to go.
I know, but it's just an unexpected place, because I even said this last week that I just kind of just wanted to get to the shooty Doctor right away. But now I've become reacquainted with Tennant, and I just want a little bit more.
Yeah, I know. You don't want him to go, but
he's not even my favorite Doctor, but I just want a little bit more before he goes.
You'll get plenty of Big Finish with the 14th Doctor.
Oh, great, because I love those. Another thing I was wondering, your guys' take on, because I saw someone say, because I have only personally seen a lot more negative reaction online than the positive reaction to this story in the first 2.
You're following the wrong people, Eric.
Again, I'm sure our feeds vary among us. But anyway, something I saw someone say was that they actually felt, if you think of this in the context of a 60th anniversary special series, trying to celebrate or show reverence to the show as a whole, I actually saw someone say that they almost feel like the Power of the Doctor episode would have been a more valid or appropriate anniversary special than these 2 specials so far.
Oh, of course. Definitely better 60th anniversary.
No. Yeah, I mean, even with this episode being basically just a regular Doctor Who episode, there's no comparison to anything that Chibnall did and what RTD does.
Oh, it's a big anniversary.
It's not even the same. It's not even the same universe.
Wow.
It's so. I mean,
at large, I agree with what you're saying, George. Josh. But the Power of the Doctor, I mean,
what? What?
I think we were all relatively positive on the episode that we did on it.
I can't remember how we were, but I didn't hate it. I know that.
Let me put it this way. My bar was set extremely low.
But, okay, maybe it's more appropriate for a 60th anniversary because it brings all the old Doctor, well, not all of them, but a lot of the old Doctors back.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And, of course, the returning companions. And I'm not saying that anniversary specials are required to have multi-Doctor stories.
They have been in the past. Every time.
I'm aware of that, too. I'm aware of that. So, I don't know. I'm kind of in between on this. On is this a good celebration? It's certainly a good celebration of the new series, which is a little bit weird, because I always thought maybe they should have a nod to whatever the new series anniversary is every now and then, separate from the overall anniversary.
Let's see next week. Let's see on Saturday.
Definitely, I'm
You know,
curious.
I mean, obviously, like everything's leading up to. Although this episode had nothing to do with what's leading up to this particular episode coming up.
Unless Mavity is a huge thing.
Yeah, I also wonder about the whole salt thing at the end.
Yeah,
I wondered if that had some connection.
Caleb,
That's another
good
thing.
point. Good point. I mean, he mentions something about how he shouldn't have brought in a superstition or something of that nature. Like, what was that all about?
Yeah, that seems key to something.
Yeah, at the edge of the universe. Or...
He brought the celestial toy maker into existence by doing that.
Oh, that'd be weird. That'd be really weird.
I mean, it would not surprise me.
I almost wish they, you know how, well, some of you know, I'm sure, how they made that colorized omnibus version of the Dalek story. I almost wish they did a similar treatment for the Celestial Toy Maker so I could watch that going in. No, I'm serious. Going into
well, there's a reconstruction that's not terribly terrible.
I know there's a reconstruction, but I would love to see, you know, a color
I agree.
omnibus.
Oh, I don't disagree.
It's not that good of a story. It's actually really boring. It's
pretty much, yeah.
It's like an hour and a half of them like playing Monopoly. And it's just completely mindless and boring.
Yeah.
There's a little bit more to it, but what you see in the episode that exists, that's pretty much what you get.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, the episode that exists is like the best one to watch. So
yeah, and Hartnell's missing for most of it as well. Yeah, it's not great. Definitely
not even Michael Goff can save it.
Actually, you know, Michael Goff was married to Polly, of course, as you guys know.
Oh no.
Yes, I knew.
Married to Annika Wills, of course. You know, beat up on her. Never mind.
Yeah, horrible story.
Anyway, not a great guy.
Alfred.
I know it ruined Alfred. It kind of ruined Alfred a little bit for me because, yeah, when you hear her tell the story too, it's just very.
Oh, it's so terrible. It's so awful.
Wait. She would go to cons and tell the stories about him.
Oh, she has told stories about him. Yes.
Wow. Okay, where was it? Like
really bad, Sean.
Oh my God.
Really, really bad. Really bad.
Yeah, really very, very ugly. And she gets so emotional telling it too. That just makes
That's the worst part of it. It's like, don't even bring it up.
Yeah.
You know?
Wow. Okay.
She's still with us. She's one of the originals. One of the OGs.
Yeah, and I always really liked Polly. I wish that they would have given her more because there was always something there. But
oh yeah, she's actually a very sweet lady. I met her once. Very sweet lady. You know, just it's so nice to meet some of those folks from the '60s Doctor Who.
Yeah, that's definitely cool.
Yeah, I mean, I still have my William Russell autograph that I got from him. I still have that.
That's pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah, it is really cool.
That was the last year that was the last year I attended, and I got to see him, which was pretty awesome. Because he's not going much anymore.
I mean, he's 99 years old. He's still around.
Yeah.
But it's amazing to have his signature. It just feels really great. It's like one of my prized possessions.
Yeah, I forgot he appeared in the last Jodie episode.
Yeah, he did.
He
appeared in Power of the Doctor.
Yeah, I was reviewing that episode after we talked about the Star Beast last time.
Mel is in this next episode. So
yeah, and she's also in that episode, which I also forgot.
That's interesting.
Mel is in this next episode again. Like,
finally going to go to Blackpool.
Oh, wait! Tell me, y'all. Do you think that the Cyber Dog Club is going to show up in the third one? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Is that what they're called? Is that the name of the group in the end of the Chibnall episode?
I don't know.
What do you mean by the Cyber Dog Club?
Yeah, I'm lost.
I'm lost too.
Okay. So where he parks the TARDIS at the beginning of the last episode, and the end of this episode, there is a bar or a restaurant. It looks like a nightclub that has two giant Cybermen in front of it.
Really?
Yeah.
And it says Cyber Dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, I meant to mention that last episode. I just forgotten about it. Yeah, I didn't know what the hell that was. I was like, is that a canine reference?
Or... Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was just a background Easter egg or if it was supposed to mean anything else.
I am interested to see what happens with the Mel piece of all this, because like Mel was there during a time in Doctor Who where it wasn't the best. And I'm just really interested to see it. maybe they'll recapture the Mel character.
She made up for it in Big Finish, though. She's really good now. So I'm like, okay, that's the overstatement at the
She
Doctor Who
is.
con.
She definitely is.
By the way, she likely is better in Big Finish because everybody's better in Big Finish.
Yeah.
She definitely is. Yeah.
Go back and listen to our MHC commentaries on Trial as Time Lord that Josh was especially excited to do.
I don't have any memory of them at all.
He almost never mentioned Pip and Jane Baker.
which is more likely than not exactly all I talked about during the Trial of a Time Lord. But I don't even remember doing those commentaries, Eric. So.
I very much remember. I remember you wanting to get through them.
Definitely wanted to get through them. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys put me right back into the Christmas spirit, talking about Molly and the Toy Maker. I mean, Polly.
Molly and Polly.
Any other final thoughts on the episode? Because to be honest, I mean, after I said my piece, I didn't have much else to say about this.
I mean, how do we rate this one? That's where I'm struggling.
How about by moving walls?
I was gonna say there's a few things you could
A little
choose.
cube reference.
How many moving walls do you guys give this one?
Sure.
All right, let's do moving walls. Why not? Or robots, or slow moving robots. How many slow moving robots do you guys give this one? How about that one?
Sure. One final thing I just wanted to say,
Yes, Lieutenant.
when we knew the title was Wild Blue Yonder, for some reason I never connected it to the song. And, when they make that reference clear early in the story, I just think it's crazy that I missed the reference ahead of time. Because that song is a song I've just heard throughout my entire life. It's probably
Like
one of
most
the
people.
It's probably one of the earliest live performance band orchestral songs I've ever heard in my life.
Wait a minute, you heard it live?
Yeah,
That's interesting.
many times.
Oh, is this like your military experience, Eric?
Yeah, and not just active duty and ROTC, but also as a youth. Because I've been to
As a
many.
youth?
Yes, as a youth. Because I have been to many a military parade as a child and as a teenager and as an adult.
What's a ute?
Sorry, I don't know what you're talking about because I definitely did not say Ute.
Nobody knows, Josh.
You made it up.
Sorry. I figured I end it more funny than I just started it. So
No, I appreciate it, but apparently we're the only two that have seen that movie.
I've seen it. I just wasn't saying anything.
Okay.
I wasn't acknowledging it.
oh, thanks, Carl. Thanks for your help on this one.
You've never seen My Cousin Vinny, Eric?
Yes, I have. More than once.
So the Ute comment you just completely passed by. It didn't matter or whatever.
Correct.
Okay, all right. I see where it's time for us to close out the show.
No, hold on. Let's talk about Wild Blue Yonder. I mean, the song.
I'm just surprised you heard it in a band. Like a band actually played Wild Blue Yonder.
It was a military band.
That's what I mean. It's
This is such a non sequitur moment again.
No, but I've heard it many times, Josh, played by a military band.
that's really interesting. I'm ignorant to those who have been in the military. I know the origin of the song is military. I know that for sure, but
Yeah, but the main songs for all the branches get played a lot at military parades.
Eric, I'm in DC, so I too
Yes.
have heard it.
do you hear it all the time, Carl?
Yes.
I knew where he was going with this when he was talking about it. Constantly hearing the live version of this. Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
all right, fair enough. It gets played in DC quite a bit.
That too, and yeah, and I heard it in DC too. But so I'm surprised I just completely missed all that context.
Washington, D.C. or the D.C. universe?
Washington D.C. is what we're talking about.
It's Washington
DC.
MCU.
Oh dear. So I'm surprised I missed the reference.
You two happen to be from Washington, D.C.
I just wanted to finish my part.
About the Wild Blue Yonder being played. Yes, go on, please.
So I said all that bit.
Let's interrupt him 10 more times.
And then it's not the interruption, it's how it makes me lose my train of
Okay,
thought.
I'll interrupt him again. That's fine. Go ahead.
So
Off
that
we
being
go
said,
into the Wild Blue Yonder.
I'm gonna rage quit my podcast for the very
Oh no! Not again.
That would not be good. Go ahead, Eric. Eric, sorry. My apologies. I went over the line. My apologies. Go ahead. Wild Blue Yonder, do it. Say it.
So aside from all that, the bit of commentary in the episode about, Donna mentions how they used to sing it a lot in primary school, which I find a little bit weird, but that's not important. But the part where they start talking about how, it's a song of war. It's like, a preparation of going. Because at first Donna's character looks at it, that seems a little bit inappropriate now in retrospect. But then later they refer back to it like maybe it's, like the TARDIS's way to announce like a call to action. And so once again, I was wondering, like the Mavity situation, is this just something little to reflect on just in this one story? Like the Four Knocks or the Sound of Drums, like something is coming, or
no, please,
or I mean, is it, or are they trying to make a bigger statement and it's something to add to the through line? I don't know, but it's because if it just exists in this one story, it seemed a little bit heavy just to drop it out of nowhere.
I wouldn't mind if it came up again as a joke, but if it turns into like the fucking crack in the wall or Bad Wolf, please.
It almost felt like that. It felt like that.
But RTD doesn't have like 12 episodes to freaking walk us through it. It would have to be happening next week. And by the way, I think that the Toymaker actually removed the letters G and R out of the English language in the next episode. So everything should make a lot more sense after we hear that.
It could be a setup for the next episode, or it could be
my name be? I would be Sean Homie.
Oh no!
It could be a setup for the next episode, or some of these could be seeds for
Shooty.
I was thinking about that too. Yeah,
I was thinking the Shooty series finale, whenever that's supposed to be.
Yeah,
it could be some kind of setup for that. I don't know, but it just seemed like there's a reason why this dialogue is inserted into this episode.
There's definitely a reason for it. I rely on RTD to make it a reason. He's very good at that, so likely it's not throwaway stuff.
Well, he definitely makes things for reasons, but I don't know how good most of those resolutions are. I think almost all of his season finales are just embarrassing now. And back then too. They're just embarrassing.
Well, they're only slightly embarrassing.
Generally, I agree with Caleb. But okay, so we can rate it now with slow-moving robots?
Yeah, slow-moving robots. Let's do it. Let's start with Sean, because he started, so let's go with Sean first.
You started this, Sean. It's all your fault.
It's all your fault, Sean.
All right. Out of 5 slow-moving robots, is that correct?
Yes.
I'm going to give this 4 slow-moving robots.
Sean liked the show.
I liked this a lot, yeah. I'm willing to bet you that I will like it more than what's next. I can just feel that it's gonna be a turd. There's something in my DNA that tells me it's gonna be a turd.
Caleb, just because... Caleb, you're next.
But I really liked this. I thought it was great. I thought they were great at it. I've already explained my reaction to the visual effects, the visual effects that you all don't like. The Worf bit was great. I'm sorry, Wilf. Sorry.
Now who's injecting Star Trek?
Shows up in the end in the chair.
I missed the time that Worf showed up. Was that? I mean, I do know that I looked at my watch a couple times. Maybe Worf showed up then.
Didn't they make a comic once upon a time where the Fourth Doctor went to when it was the classic Star Trek crew?
Yes, you probably remember that because I was posting those images.
And the 11th Doctor and Picard. I think.
Oh God, yes, I remember that. And Sherlock. By the way, he's met both, so he's been in. The 11th Doctor has been in so many other institutions.
Good time.
Yeah, when are they going to bring him back 10 years from now for 3 specials? But sorry, keep going, Sean.
He was supposed to show up in this episode, Caleb.
Oh, no.
Are you serious?
Apparently, the rumor was that he would show up in this episode.
That was the rumor.
That's
I don't think
weird.
there was ever any...
Of course, he's gone. He's never coming back.
He's a busy guy.
I don't know about that either.
He'll be old and gray, and he'll come back. He'll come back to mid-finish.
I just hope I'm still around to enjoy that.
He was away filming last night at Soho when they were doing this.
Oh, really? Because I thought he was filming the new Game of Thrones thing.
I have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about.
It's probably Game of Thrones because I feel like Soho
last night in Soho. Yeah, it's probably Game of Thrones. Last Night in Soho was like a pre-COVID movie.
Yeah, exactly.
In 2019 when they built this thing. Okay, all right, Caleb. How many robots do you give this episode?
I'd give this a 3. It's definitely a step in the right direction. I wish that RTD would have just focused on the horror a little bit more rather than the silly stuff, but he can't help himself, I guess. But yeah, I just this isn't really for me, this kind of Doctor Who. But for trying to meet somewhere in the middle, I think that this was okay, and I mostly enjoyed it. So yeah, 3 is the best I got.
So I'm gonna give it 2 slowly moving robots, and the 2 slowly moving robots is only because it was watchable Doctor Who, which is something we have not had in a while, other than the Star Beast actually was watchable. But I just think that per my written message, I think that he's trying too hard, and Disney is trying too hard to make this Who Framed Roger Rabbit. It would work if I was 8, but I'm not 8. So, yeah, two slowly moving robots fits for me on this one.
Yeah, I'm going to go with 3 slow moving robots because, again, the thing that, Eric brought up also is however I felt about the mixed effects and the, I guess the villain, not being quite what I was hoping. I was engaged in this episode. Through everything that happened, I was engaged in what was happening, and again, it was good to be back in the Doctor Who space with that. So
your bar is pretty low there, Carl. You were engaged, so it's a 3. I mean, up to you what you want to, but I'm kind of in the same boat, except I gave it a 2. Just like if I'm engaged, that just beats the Chibnall era to death. Because I wasn't engaged with anything. Anyway, sorry, I don't mean to talk over you, Carl. Your discussion of the episode actually brought up a lot of good points. I agree with most of what you said. Eric, what do you think?
I love that Sean loved it and gave it a 4. I'm happy because I was confused by Sean's rating last time. And I actually am not that bothered by the effects as much as it seems others are. Not necessarily just here on this podcast, but out there. Were they the best? No. But overall, I thought it still looked really good for Doctor Who in general. Even though it was very obviously blue or green screen, it was fine. It was fine for Doctor Who. For me, it's another 3. Don't ask me which one I like better between this one and Star Beast because I don't really know. But they just both feel like RTD Doctor Who in 2023 clothing. And that wasn't on my wish list 2-3 years ago. But it's okay. It's fine. I'm not upset about it. And as always, I'm looking forward to next week. But until then, closing out the show today, this is Eric.
This is Josh.
This is Sean.
This is Carl.
And this is Caleb.
And until next time.
Yeah, I mean, if you're being chased by some cartoons talking out of their ass,
don't leave your sonic screwdriver in the keyhole.
Don't panic.
So what do you do in Washington, D.C., Mr. Green? Come on, what do you do? How are we to get acquainted if we don't say anything about ourselves? Well, perhaps he doesn't want to get acquainted with you. Well, I'm sure I don't know, but if I wasn't trying to cut the conversation going, we would just be sitting here in embarrassed silence. Why, are you afraid of silence, Mrs. Peacock? Yes, what? No, why? What is it? Just seems to me that you are. You seem to suffer from what we call pressure of speech. We? Who's we? Are you a doctor? I do know a little. I'm going to stop.
Yeah, I think someone's got to cut off the drinks for Sean.
I was just going to say, like, can we close out the show at some point?